Hello my dear friends, how are you? My name is Ari Thurger and today I'm going to talk about the rune Hagalaz. This rune literally means Hail or Hailstone, and it represents a time of crisis, a radical change. When this rune appears, it's bad news, I'm afraid, and I'm just astounded because yet again the runes do not lie. And this is indeed a terrible time in my life, a regression. And I did not choose to speak about this rune because of what is happening with my life. This is the rune after the previous one. I'm following the normal sequence of the Elder Futhark, and I choose the time to speak about the runes totally at random, and they coincide with what's happening with my life at the very time I choose to speak about them. They just appear and announce what's to come. Frightening. Well, anyway, this rune represents catastrophe, disruption, a radical change. The uncontrollable and unavoidable wave of unpleasantness and seemingly misfortune in our lives, much like the coming of a bad weather, dark clouds to cover the earth in darkness. This is the rune that announces chaos and obstacles beyond the human ability to go over them, to be able to succeed, because certain things in life are unavoidable and we must accept what can't be changed. Some things in life show us how fragile we are when we cannot stop the cycle of nature, and humility and submission is the only lesson we can take. Something to remind us that there is always something more powerful than us, and that in the long run we are just disposable pieces of a greater game beyond our mortal ability to comprehend. This is a rune of disruption, delay, linked to changes, often bad changes but for the long-term good. It warns us that this is a time for corrections, and during this time we lose our power and our inner harmony is completely shattered. This leads to disappointments, frustration, the feeling of blame, and in our consciousness we become the victims. The inevitability of fate is at work and you will feel shrunken somehow, completely powerless to face the natural order of things. This rune suggests an absolute frustrating time in your life when your long-term plans are absolutely crushed by difficulties. Now, take careful notice of this. When this rune appears in your life, in a rune reading, especially in divinations concerning the present and the future, you would be a fool not to heed the warning which is right in front of you. It's like being on a beach and there is a great storm ahead. You have a tiny fragile boat and you want to set sail, like you always do, so you just want to go forward, but you don't really need to. It's just the force of habit that calls to you. There is a catastrophe ahead. Don't be so eager to throw yourself in it. You don't have to. Just wait for the storm to pass. And when the sun shines once again and the ocean is calm, you can continue with your routine. Now let's talk about certain aspects of Norse mythology to be able to understand the perception our Norse ancestors had about unavoidable events and how they tried to transmit that knowledge through mythological accounts. Our Norse ancestors knew well enough the extremes of the natural elements, and that is very well printed in the mythological accounts. Before the world was created, there was only chaos, a great void in which fire and ice collided, and the first vestiges of life started to take form, much like what this rune represents, a chaotic time and a great change before the long-term good. Ice, much like fire, was present in the creation of the cosmos, of worlds and of life itself, so ice to our ancestors was also seen as something sacred, a cosmic substance which provided life, and it was from ice that the first being took shape, the first ancestor of the gods, Ymir. This mythological character is the personification of the icy substance that gives life, and from it life sprouts. This rune is also connected with the Norns, the goddesses of fate from Norse mythology. You will notice that The next runes are Naudis and Isa. This is a sequence of 3 runes, a triad of menacing runes that embody dangerous and hostile forces to humanity, an association with the harsh and cold elements of winter that no one is able to predict or to prevent. This sequence of 3 runes come together. They represent the 3 Norns, therefore they represent fate, something we can't change no matter how hard we try, because it's beyond our physical, psychological and even spiritual limitations. This is what this rune is all about. It shows you your limitations, the line you cannot cross, because that's just the end of your powers. Even the gods have limitations, and when they try to overcome the inevitable, they end up destroying themselves. Now let's talk about the meaning of this rune for divination purposes. And as you may have noticed, this rune has no inverted position. It is what it is, it represents what can't be changed, a unique, strong force that completely shakes the very foundations of the cosmos. But before I start, let me give you additional information. The Elder Futhark is divided into Aiths, groups of runes which embody a specific meaning, altogether tell a story and construct a very clear image. The first Heath is Freyr's Heath. It begins with chaos, creation, the foundations of life, fertility, peace, harmony, a cycle of life, the natural order of things, and that Heath ends with the rune Unyo, joy. Hagalaz is the very first rune of the second Heath, which takes the name from this rune, Hagalaz Heath. This row of runes marks the unexpected chaos, the unavoidable, the very force which comes to disrupt harmony, but in its own way also creates harmony, because it's part of nature, part of a cycle, and this group of runes, especially Hagalaz, is connected with death, the very thing that marks an end or a pause in the cycle of all things, so that through death new life can come forth. This row of runes is the representation of the most powerful force in the universe, the very thing whose power is completely impersonal. It creates life and it takes life, a flow of unstoppable energies. Because this is a rune of the unexpected and inevitable, when it appears in a rune reading, it marks the unknown, frightening and mysterious events in your life. You will have little or no power at all to avert what is about to happen. It will strike you hard like a hailstorm, so sudden, so unexpected, so out of control that you will feel confused and all your senses will swirl in this chaotic storm. Unfavorable conditions will take form in any area of your life, be that personal or professional or anything in general, but especially related to difficulties with present projects. Rethink your entire plans. Maybe it's already too late, but if it isn't, if this rune appears in the future position of your divination, be ready to rethink everything. But don't be disheartened. Don't let this storm bring you down, or rather, it will bring you down, but do not linger in frustration and sadness. Get up. You will get up. Things are not all bad. This is a rune of sudden change, disruption, delay, but remember, it's for a long-term good. Remember that ice will eventually turn to water, it will melt away, once the sun shines once again. Hope is implicit in the meaning of Hagalaz. All you have to do now is wait until the storm passes by. Hagalaz is hard, it hurts, it's a sting in your very soul, it represents the time of confrontation. Nothing that you will do will postpone the inevitable. You must face it, endure it, and survive. Once this hail is over, it will melt, turn to water, go down in the earth, which will help in the germination of seeds. Life will come forth once again, stronger than before, and there is a transformation. That's what sudden changes are for, to help you in that transformation. Because becoming someone better and more powerful and stronger sometimes isn't really up to us. It must be forced on us for our own good, and we will thank later. Sometimes we dwell too long in our comfort zone, and only a great storm will take us out of our seat in order to evolve, in order to grow, shaking things a bit. Only a great storm will root us out from a very fragile and unbalanced and unstable ground to put us back in the right track. A transformation necessary to have stronger foundations which will sustain the weight of everything we will experience in the future. Alright, my dear friends, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed yet another video about the runes. Thank you so much, see you on the next video, and tack för idag!